What's happening, everyone? Steve here, Cars with Steve, and today I'm going to be teaching you everything you need to know about Sync3, so the infotainment system inside of the 2021 Ford Mustang GT. It's a pretty straightforward process, but we're going to be covering off everything you need to know: how to set up Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, connecting your phone, factory navigation, and a bunch of other things. If you enjoy the content, give it a thumbs up, consider subscribing, and share it with your social network. But guys, let's dive right into it and see what the Sync3 system has to offer. Okay, now this is the Sync3 screen. So it's the same Sync3 screen that we saw in last year's Mustang. So unfortunately, we're not wireless Android Auto and Apple CarPlay as of yet, but hopefully that's going to be coming in a future generation. Now let's take a peek at the screen, figure out a little bit more about what's going on. Now this is, as I mentioned, so the 401 version of, the 401 version of the Mustang GT. If you went for the 300A, it would look very, very different. This whole setup would look different, but because we're in the 301 or higher, that's why we've got the look the way that it is. Now this is going to be the home screen for that Sync3 system. So we're looking at the 401 version of the vehicle. It does have factory navigation. If you don't have factory navigation, this will look slightly differently. You'll have a compass up there, and then you'll have the audio settings in a different position instead. But with the 401 version, we do have factory navigation built in, and it is available on every trim level as well, which is a great option. But you do have the ability to hook up using Android Auto or Apple CarPlay if you want to use built-in maps, so using, let's say, Google Maps, Apple Maps, or Waze directly through this middle screen instead. Now, if for whatever reason you're not on this home screen, all you have to do is press that home button on the very top left-hand side, and that'll bring you back to this basic summary. So a few things to point out: we've got our basic audio settings there. So let's actually go through audio for a second so we can adjust our volume there. And we've got a few different things to do for sources. So we've got our AM, FM, SiriusXM, we've got a CD player still, which is so cool. And then we've also got our Bluetooth stereo. So we can choose between whatever active radio source or entertainment source we'd like. We can tune a few different ways. So we can tune using this button, we can tune using the rocker, or there's a command on our steering wheel to use our voice instead. So if we tune to a station, as you can see there, we've tuned, and in order to save a preset, all we're going to do is press and hold any of the available spots there, and it'll save it for us. So very straightforward. Now, as we start to move down, we've got our climate setting instead. So climate, tons of different options. We've got our auto setting, which is going to let the vehicle determine what the cabin temperature should be. We've got our menu button, which is going to bring up our max AC, our air circulation, or our max windshield defroster. Closing that out, we've got the ability to turn this on or off, and then we've also got a dual zone climate control. So if your driver and passenger like things a little bit different, let's say your passenger likes things a little bit warmer, you can adjust that if you'd like to. As you can see, the dual button is highlighted there. But let's say there's nobody in that seat and you need to get rid of the dual, all you're going to do is literally just press that dual button, and it'll default it to whatever the driver's side is set up at. As you can see there, our system's on, but we've got the ability to select if it's going to our windshield, our face, or to our feet. We've got a heated steering wheel in this thing, which is beautiful. We've got our rear window defroster, as well as our air control, our AC. From there, we've also got our fan control, and then we've also got the ability to adjust, as you can see there, so we can adjust our temperature there. We can adjust it down there instead. And then just turning off. And that's going to be the basics of the climate control settings there. So we do have a digital display for it. We also do, moving down the console a little bit, have some climate control settings there also. You just have more options looking at it through this middle screen. Next up, adding a phone. So it's very straightforward to add a phone to this thing. You can connect through Bluetooth or through USB. USB really is if you're going to be using Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. So let's figure out how we can add a phone in, because it is actually a very straightforward process. All we're going to do is press the Add Phone button.
Search for your vehicle on your device and select it once it is found.
Okay, and next up, all we're going to do is bring up Bluetooth on our phone. And this is going to show up in just a sec. There we go. So as you can see, I've got Ford Mustang. Just going to tap on Ford Mustang.
Confirm that the pin displayed on Sync matches the pin displayed on your device.
Okay, so we need to make sure that those pin numbers match up, and they do. So we're going to hit pair, and yes.
For your safety, please stay alert to changing road conditions and use Sync's voice-activated features while your vehicle is in motion.
Okay, so my phone is almost connected. Next up, on my phone, as you can see there, it's asking me if I want to allow my contacts and favorites to sync. Yeah, I'm hooking my phone up. I want to do that, so hit allow. Excellent. Okay. Now taking a look there, a few other things to point out. 911 assist, I always recommend turning that one on. The big reason why is because if your cell phone's connected and you're in an accident, the vehicle is automatically going to dial 911 for you and talk to the operator. So definitely recommend keeping that one on. And moving down, we've got our automatic contact download. Yeah, we want to make sure that happens. We want to make sure that our contacts are downloaded to the vehicle so that we can use our voice command prompts in order to make our phone calls. So we're just going to hit finish there. And as you can see, I'm now fully connected. We can look at my calls, my contacts, we can change phones, which is useful if you've got multiple devices connected. We've got our basic Siri commands as well. So that's really, really neat. I am connected. Now, one thing to point out, there are certain apps that will work through this middle screen through Bluetooth. We've got LiveX Live, Spotify, Pandora, things like that, that will work. So it's really, really neat. You don't have to rely on the factory radio or SiriusXM. You can go through your phone radio apps if you'd prefer to do that instead. So really, really cool. Now, in order to be able to set up Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, it's a very straightforward process. I'm going to start off on the Apple CarPlay side of things. So all we're going to do, just going to take our USB cable and we're just going to plug it in to any of the available USB ports. So if we move down a little bit there, so I'm plugged into a USB port and set you back up. Next up, all we're going to do, take the other end of the USB cable. We're just going to plug it in. Boom. Watch this. Okay, so we have to unlock the phone. So let's unlock. Boom. All right, so the only reason why that was happening is because I've got a little bit of a loose connection down there. I've got to replace this cable, but Apple CarPlay lets you use your phone in a way that allows you to stay focused on the road. So we're going to hit continue to that. And privacy terms and conditions. So we do need to accept that in order for Apple CarPlay to work. So we're going to hit agree. And just a second there. Next up, it's going to ask me if I want to allow CarPlay to work while my phone is locked. So we're going to hit allow. Boom. So as you can see, I am now connected. We can look at my phone, look at music. We've got Apple Maps, we've got Google Maps, we've got Waze. So we've got a ton of different options there. Now, one of the nice things about CarPlay is that it does give us the ability to customize some things. So if we look at my phone, we've got CarPlay there, we've got My Car, and we've got the ability to customize some things. So as you can see, we've got our generic layout there. But let's say if you have a tendency to, I don't know, maybe use Google Maps a little bit more than anything else, all we have to do is just take Google Maps, we can drive it up to the top there, and look at that, it's automatically updated Google Maps for us. So you can kind of delete things if you want to. If you never use Google Maps, you can completely delete it, and then you've got the ability to easily add more apps on the screen. Now, if for whatever reason you mess up too many things, you can reset it at the very top as well, which will reset you back to that basic factory default layout for this system. So really, really nice look, but I love the fact that you've got some hotkeys to some pretty cool things. We've got our direction button, we've got our voice button there. As we start to move back to our settings there, we've got a ton of different options. Now, in order to be able to remove the phone, or maybe you don't necessarily want to run off of Apple CarPlay, maybe you want to at least be charged up while not running off of CarPlay, all we're going to do is hit the forward button. We can go back into our CarPlay preferences. We can launch into CarPlay by hitting Apple CarPlay. We can run off of our maps or using our phone there. Now, if we go into CarPlay settings, we can turn CarPlay off or we can remove my phone. So if we turn CarPlay off, what's going to happen is, watch this. So now instead of running off of our phone navigation, we can run off of our factory navigation instead. So the phone is still charging while we're not using CarPlay. So really straightforward. And then if we jump into phone, as you can see, we've got my phone connected still, and we can disconnect that in a few different ways. So by going to the settings on the bottom right, go to phone, we can view devices, and we've got my phone connected there. So any available phone would be there. We can either disconnect or we can completely remove. So we remove the phone. It is now completely disconnected. Going back to phone, we can now add something back in if we wanted to. And that's going to be the basics of how to set up Apple CarPlay inside of the Mustang. Connecting an Android device is essentially the exact same process. All we're going to do is make sure our Bluetooth is turned on. Perfect. And what we're going to do is we're going to go to pair device. There we go, perfect. Available devices helps if I scroll. So we've got available devices there. We can click through to that and watch what happens.
Confirm that the pin displayed on Sync matches the pin displayed on your device.
Boom, so same thing we just saw. So we have to make sure that our pin numbers match up, and they do. So we're gonna hit yes and okay.
For your safety, please stay alert to changing road conditions and use Sync's voice-activated features while your vehicle is in motion.
Okay, so I am now connected. Taking a look, do I want to allow access to my messages? Yeah, I want to make sure that I do that. And I am now connected through now I'm connected to the vehicle, but not connected to Android Auto just yet. We've got one more option there, automatically download our contacts. Yes, we want to make sure we do that. Allow access to contacts. Yep, let's make sure we do that. And boom, I'm connected. So we've got my recent calls, my contacts. Same thing if we've got multiple phones, we can change that as necessary. We can use my phone assistant and things like that. Now, setting up Android Auto is the exact same process. We're going to take our USB cable. We're going to plug it into any of the available USB ports. And boom. Next up, all we're going to do is take that USB cable and we're just going to insert it into the phone. Boom. And we're going to give it just a sec. Watch what happens. Oh, look at that. Android Auto extends the Android platform. So very similar to what we just saw on the iPhone side of things. So we're going to hit continue. And same thing, we need to agree in order for this to happen. So we're going to do a couple things in tandem. We're going to agree. We're also going to make sure we hit next on our phone. And there we go. We're just going to go for a second there. Now, a couple things to point out. My phone as of right now does not have it doesn't have a SIM card installed there. So you might get this error. If you ever do, just hit the cancel button. And as you can see there, it's going to automatically connect to Android Auto for you. It's a super weird thing that happens, but it's there. Okay, jumping into the home screen for a second there. Perfect, so we are now connected through Android Auto. So if I had active messages on here, this is just a phone that I'm using for these purposes, but we've got the ability, we would have the ability, I should say, to look through messages, look through the phone calls, and a number of other things. So we've got our calendar, news, reminder, and a few things. We can look at our Google Maps if we wanted to. If you had the Waze app installed, you'd be able to use the Waze app directly through this middle screen. We can look at our notifications, or we can use Google Assistant. So very straightforward and very similar to what we just finished seeing on the Apple CarPlay side of things. Now, same thing, if we needed to get back to our Sync3 home screen, we're just going to press the sync button on the very top, and that brings us back to the home screen there. Now, a couple things to point out. Phone, as I mentioned, is not connected because I do not have an active SIM card there, but we could make phone calls with it technically if I was connected or I was close by to a Wi-Fi network. We've got maps, which we could run off of either the phone maps, so Android Auto, for the maps, we can run off of Google Maps, Waze, etc., directly through this middle screen. And we've also got our Android Auto preferences to jump back into Android Auto. Or we head back home and we can go to our Android Auto preferences. So same thing what we just saw on the Apple side of things. If we want to make sure we're charging up while we're not connected to Android Auto, we can simply toggle it off. We can completely remove the phone as well from Android Auto. And in order to remove the phone, very similar to what we just saw on the iPhone side of things. So what we do is, let's say if you're on the home screen, we're just going to go to Settings, Phone, View Devices. We've got my phone, disconnect, or we can completely remove, boom, and my phone is now completely disconnected. It really is that simple. Okay, next up, as we start to look into navigation. So the vehicle itself is equipped with factory navigation. If you don't have navigation on your vehicle, this button just wouldn't be there. But as I mentioned, you can still run off of Apple Maps, Google Maps, or Waze directly through this middle screen. So let's look at controls for a second there. We can easily search for an address if we want to. All we're gonna do is type it in as we go. Actually, let's type in, let's find a random address. So boom, show you how this works. So very straightforward. Now it does autocomplete as well, so we can start typing and we can just connect to an address there. We can save it as a favorite, or we can hit start in order for it to begin going. So
obey traffic laws, be alert, and use voice commands while driving.
There we go.
Please proceed to the highlighted route, and then the route guidance will start.
Okay, perfect. So as you can see there, we've got our route that's set up and active. In order to cancel the route, all we're gonna do is press the X button, cancel the route, and boom, now canceled. Bringing up our controls again, we've got our menu button we can bring back up for a number of other settings. So we can change at our screen view, look at our traffic list, but the big one here is going to be our navigation settings. So navigation settings, we've got 3 different options. We've got our map preferences first and foremost. Big one there to point out would be our breadcrumbs or our point of interest icons. Breadcrumbs are pretty neat. So if you have breadcrumbs turned on, as you start to drive around, you'll notice a series of dots based off of the routes that you've taken. So that's a pretty cool feature. Other one is going to be our point of interest icons. So point of interest icons is going to let us know if we've got a nearby gas station, things like that. Moving into our route preferences, so we can either go the fastest, shortest, or the most eco-friendly route. We can look at HOV lanes, dynamic route guidance, and a number of other things. So things such as like avoiding freeways and toll roads. So if you don't like to go on toll roads, things like that, you can select that. And when you do a navigation through the factory navigation, it's automatically going to update it based off of whatever your preferences are there. The last one is going to be our nav preferences, so our guidance prompts. So as you're coming up to a turn, do you want a voice to say, turning in 200 meters? Do you want it to be a chime as well? Do you want it to just be the voice or just the chime? So really a matter of preference. We can close that out and jump back, and that's going to be the basics of the navigation settings. We can search for addresses, we can look at our history, we can look at our favorites, point of interest icons, and then the big ones there are going to be our home and our work address. So we can set up individual addresses there. So one of the benefits of doing that is, let's say if we've got our home address set up, we can then use our voice command button on the steering wheel and say navigate home, and it'll automatically navigate to us to our home address. So that's a really, really cool feature that's available in this thing. And that is going to be the basics of the factory navigation. Moving into our apps, so there are certain apps that will work through this middle screen. Big one, again, make sure that you're physically connected either through USB or over Bluetooth, because some radio apps will work. Now, if for whatever reason your radio app isn't working, just make sure that your iPhone or your Android device is up to date with the latest iOS, and also your vehicle is also up to date. So getting into that, let's look at some of our basic settings there. So first of all, let's look at our sound settings. So sound, ton of different options there. We've got our treble, mid-range bass, all sorts of things that we can tweak out if we wanted to. Moving down, we've got our balance fade, speed compensation volume, etc. Speed compensated volume, what that's going to do is that's going to adjust the speed, the level of, I should say, of the volume, depending on how fast you're driving. Next up, we've got our clock settings. So clock settings we can actually get to a couple of ways. We can either go to settings and clock, or we can just press the clock at the very top in order to jump into that. Increase or decrease an hour or a minute, change between AM or PM. We can switch to the military time if we prefer that. And then our daylight savings time zone as well. So daylight savings time, the vehicle's automatically going to either spring us forward or fall us back an hour, depending on the time of year. And then we've also got our automatic time zone update. So if we're going to the east or the west coast, the vehicle will automatically update our time zone as necessary. Next up, we've got our Bluetooth option, so we can turn Bluetooth off or we can connect other Bluetooth devices. We've got our phone, so that's where we would go if our phone was connected to change out different settings, or we can add a phone using that button, or we can press it down there. Next up, we've got our radio. So we've got our radio text and we've got our auto set as well. So the radio text is going to show, let's jump into our radio for a second, so audio. This is going to be the radio text. Whether or not that shows up, it's going to be a matter of preference. Now, if we change into our SiriusXM for a second, let's jump back into our settings. As you can see, that's now become a SiriusXM button instead. So we've got a number of different things. So we can do a parental lock if we wanted to. We can do all sorts of other things. So smart presets, we can look at some locked channels. So if there are channels that we don't want people listening to as we go, we can lock out certain ones. We can look at different information there as well. So if you're a big SiriusXM user, just knowing that when you change it out to a different source, that's going to affect what's happening with that button. So actually, let's go back into FM to show you again. Boom, it's jumped back into radio instead. Next up, we've got our navigation, which we've already touched base on those settings a few moments ago. Let's go back there. Boom, boom, and mobile apps. So certain mobile apps will work through this middle screen. Enable apps via USB. We can turn that on or off as necessary. And we've also got a series of general settings. Boom, okay, general settings there. So general, we can switch between either English, Spanish, or French, Celsius, Fahrenheit, kilometers, or miles. That beep that we're getting, we can turn that one on or off if we don't like it. Automatic system updates. I absolutely recommend that you always keep the automatic system updates on. And the reason why is because it's automatically going to update the vehicle software for you if there's an active, or if there's an update. So when you're at home, connected through Wi-Fi at home, it's automatically going to download any updates that are currently available for the vehicles. Definitely recommend keeping that one on. Last one to point out is going to be our reset. So we can easily reset the vehicle if we need to. So if the middle screen's giving you issues, you can just do a master reset to bring it back to factory defaults. Really useful if you're selling your vehicle, you just master reset to bring it back to that default. Okay. Next up, we've got our 911 Assist. As I mentioned, 911 Assist, with your phone connected, the vehicle's automatically going to dial 911 if it senses a collision. We've got our Wi-Fi as well as our automatic updates. So automatic updates will automatically update the software in the vehicle if it's available. FordPass Connect. The vehicle is equipped with an onboard modem, which gives you the ability to essentially use it as a wireless hotspot. So you can connect up to 10 devices, which is really cool. You do need a cell phone provider, so a data-only plan, in order to make that happen. So in Canada, it's Bell Mobility. I believe it's Verizon down in the States. We've got Apple CarPlay, so I was connected. We can remove my phone and watch what happens when I do that. I've got no more phones connected to the vehicle with Apple CarPlay, so it just disappears. So it's really that easy. And we've got, let's jump into our vehicle settings. So basic camera settings, onboard modem serial number, nothing too crazy there. And then we've got our display. So I love the look of the display, but if you find it a little bit too busy, you can simply turn the display off if you want to. Press in order to bring it back to life again. Background, we can change that out, and then we've got a few different modes. So as of right now, it's in the daytime mode because it's got that brighter white look to it. If we go to the nighttime, we've got this beautiful blue look instead. I personally would keep it on this nighttime mode, but it's a matter of preference. So automatic is automatically going to flip you between the daytime or the nighttime, depending on how bright it is outside. Moving back, we've also got our voice control. So voice control, I want you to listen to something for a second. 97.7.
Tuning to FM 97.7.
Okay, so it's changed the radio station for us, so that's confirmed. If we go to audio, boom, it's changed the station for us. But if we turn on advanced mode, I want you to listen again. 94.9. Boom. Okay, so we didn't get any notification, but look at this. It's changed the station. So advanced mode just means that we're not going to get quite as many prompts as we go. Phone confirmation, do you want to call such and such person, yes or no? And then our voice command list. So as we press the voice command button, this is the actual command list. So whether or not that one comes up is whether or not this is going to be toggled on or off. Last one is going to be our valet mode. So valet mode, essentially, enter in a 4-digit number. So we'll enter something nice and challenging like 0000, and it locks the screen out. So if you've got a valet parking the vehicle, you essentially lock the screen out so people can't look through text messages, contacts, your previously saved addresses, things like that. And that is going to be the basics of this Sync3 screen. Well, folks, that was a look at the 2021 Mustang GT Sync3 system. What did you think? It's a pretty cool system, and I cannot wait until they introduce Sync 4 into this thing. Hopefully, fingers crossed, we get it soon. If you have any questions, run into any problems, drop down in the comments section below and let me know. But until I see you next time, make sure you stay safe.